department. I've got to speak from back behind here so they can hear me on the camera. How was water? Was it cool? Yeah? Good. I'm so glad. Well, the naturalization ceremony with the mayor was it was amazing. There were 96 new citizens from 35 different countries. The grand reading room at the library was completely full of their friends and families, and it was just a really neat, we got a lot of media attention, and so hopefully tomorrow you all will see some stories just about the importance of becoming a citizen and how the city is working to help people do that. It was really beautiful. It was very cool. All right, so we have inundated you with paper. You just got a bunch of different things, and I want to take a second and just walk you through it. Part of MyCity Academy is the classes that you're going through, but also there are so many things happening in the city, and as community leaders, we want you all to know about all of them. So that is why we sometimes flood you with opportunities. So this packet is kind of in chronological order. There's a whole bunch of different things going on. And there's actually one that's not in here. If anybody is interested, so USCIS is here, as I mentioned, this week. And they are having a meeting this afternoon with all of their community partners. And they asked me fervently to plead with all of you to please go to that meeting after you are done with this. It's out by the airport. If anybody is interested, I have an email from them with all the logistical information. The meeting runs, it actually starts before we're done, but it runs until 3:30. The deputy director of USCIS will be at the meeting. So if any of you are all interested, come see me in a little bit and I can get you the address of where you need to go. Now for this packet, so the first thing you'll see is English and Spanish flyers about our naturalization information session and workshop this evening. It's at Coleman Park. So at 6 o'clock, USCIS is holding an info session for green card holders who want to know what the path to citizenship looks like. You know, how can I become a citizen? And then at 7 o'clock, the Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition is hosting a workshop for people who think they might be eligible. It's kind of a pre-screening. So if any of you are interested or if you know anybody, please head to Coleman Park this evening at 6. So the next thing is the ballpark. I mentioned the ballpark. The ballpark opens tomorrow. I don't know if any of you have seen it. It is so gorgeous. It's such a neat thing. And it's right by downtown. And so it's going to be just really great because people can get there from where they live and where they work pretty easily. So you all are invited to the ribbon cutting ceremony for tomorrow. I should note, this is not to the game. The game is sold out, but there are lots of other games throughout the season. But if you want to join the mayor, and do any of you, raise your hand if you watch the show Nashville. Am I the only person who, okay. Some people watch Nashville. So Deacon from Nashville, whose real name is Chip Eston, will be singing. So head out there if you want. Tell your friends and family. It's all free. I think it'll be really fun. And note, the parking situation there is not you don't want to try to park down by the ballpark. So you can take mass transit. You can park at the mayor's office. There's a shuttle going over from our parking garage out there. But if you're going to go, don't try to park. It's just going to be too hard. The financial empowerment centers are something that is run out of the mayor's office. There's one at Casa Azafran, which is out on Nolensville, but they're all over the city. And the idea of the FECs, and you'll actually hear more about them later in MyCity Academy, but it's to help people in Nashville manage their finances. So what's a credit report? How do I start a savings account? They're having a workshop tomorrow. And this is all stuff that we've been tweeting about too, but sometimes for me, I just need to see it. So if anybody's interested in any of that, that is tomorrow. And don't forget about MyCity Connect. Is anybody coming to MyCity Connect on Wednesday? Come to MyCity Connect. MyCity Connect is with the program that we created really to keep all of you interacting with the last 3 classes of MyCity Academy, and then of course other friends and family and just people from the receiving community. So last month, as you all remember, a lot of you were with us at Southeast Community Center, and we had kind of a healthy living day. Wednesday is volunteer day, and so we will be volunteering at Second Harvest and learning about volunteer opportunities around the city. So, and the other thing is you all got small versions of this. If anybody wants big versions, I have lots. So this is an ad for Walk, well, we used to call it Walk 100. Now it's 100 miles with the mayor. So the mayor's been doing this for a few years, and the idea is, you know, Tennessee has one of the highest obesity rates and certainly one of the highest child obesity rates in the nation. And so To the mayor, the health of our city is really important to the mayor. So one of the things that he started doing a few years ago was something called Walk 100. And has anybody participated? Some folks have. So every summer, and I don't know why we choose summer because it's the hottest time of year, but every summer the mayor plans 100 miles of walks. So he walks 100 miles throughout the city, not all in one day, but all throughout the summer. And people have always come and joined him and walked with him. Well, this year we're doing 100 miles, but it's not just walking. It's walking, biking, and paddling. So canoeing or kayaking. And it's all in May. And so it would be awesome if you guys wanted to join him for any of this. And if you wanted to post these things and wherever you can, come see me. I'll get you lots of posters, or I'll just pass them out and you can take them as you go. Yeah.
And put in nice little stuff.
Good, yeah, hang them places, because this is his last year of doing this, and we would love to see a great turnout. We kicked off everything last week at Southeast Community Center, and about 100 people came out to join him. So I think there's a lot of excitement about it. So I will pass these around. Come see me if you want to go to the USCIS thing. And now we will start with our speakers for this afternoon. So we're going to hear from folks from Public Works and from Codes and from Nashville Electric Service. And so Jennifer Smith is here from Public Works. She is our city horticulturalist, which means the person who keeps our trees and green spaces in Nashville looking beautiful. She is going to come talk to you about volunteer opportunities with Public Works and everything that Public Works does for you all and for the city. So, and at the end, she will leave plenty of time for questions, so I hope that you will ask her lots. All right, and welcome to Jennifer. Thank you for being here.
It's always great to be the after lunch speaker. Who in here likes trees? Oh, awesome. I wanted to see 100% hands up, but I'll take what I can get. I'm going to talk a little bit about trees later because that is what I'm passionate about. But I want to talk about Public Works. Public Works is this huge department within Metro government. And it's hard to understand all that it does. I've worked there for several years, and I still don't understand all that it does. But I was asked one time when I was in the line at the bank, and I had my Public Works ID on, what was Public Works? And I mentioned several things, roads, litter pickup, all these things, and it didn't connect with that person. And finally I said, we fill potholes. And she said, oh, great, yes, I know what that is. So there's all different ways that we connect. So if it's not with trees, with potholes. You're given several pieces of paper, and I want to wait, well, let's see. I'll just go ahead and go on. So how does the city function? How do the roads get built and maintained? All these things magically get done by Public Works. No, it's not magic. There's a lot of people working very hard. So just some of the things that I wanted to let you know is if you have an alley where you live and you have debris that's blocking the alleyway or there's potholes, this is the sheet I'm going to go over, the sheet, okay? There's a number that you can call, 862-8750. That number is magic. It goes to a call center within Public Works, and you can call, and one of our capable people will take your information, and they will get the service out to your neighborhood. So what are some of the things you can call about? Again, your alleyways, if there's an obstruction. Brush collection, okay? That happens 4 times a year in all of our neighborhoods. I always kind of think, oh, I should get my brush out, the limbs that have fallen down, like the day after the brush collectors come through my neighborhood. So you can get online, or you can call the call center number, 862-8750, and have it so you will get an email to let you know that the brush, the limbs in your neighborhood are going to be picked up in a week in advance. So that gives you a time to get out in the yard and get it together and put it on the curb. Other things, if you notice that there's a blind intersection, there might be an accident, we would really appreciate you calling. and letting us know, and we'll get someone right out there to take care of that. And it could be that there's a tree in the way or a bush has grown out, and we count on everyone to help us with that. So if you have a question about some other part of the city that's not related to Public Works, we can serve as an informational port for you. So if you have something that actually has something to do with stormwater, our people can give you those numbers of where to call. And that's very helpful because you know how frustrating it can be just trying to find who the right person is to call. If you have a question about composting, backyard composting, and food and yard waste, what is acceptable, that's us. Where to do composting, where to dispose of brush and leaves if you don't have it picked up, we have a site, and that information is on here too. The convenience centers. One of the brochures you got is on the convenience centers, and this is something everyone really wants to know about. Convenience centers are where you can take your stuff to drop off, and it's not for businesses, it's for citizens, okay? So you can bring your waste and your recyclables. There are certain items that we will not take, and that's listed on here, but this is important to know. So commercial waste we will not take, but if you've done a little home construction project, you can bring that to the site. Then I think it's also important in the middle of it, if you have household hazardous waste, okay, some of that will be cleaners and solvents, oil-based paint, used oil and antifreeze and things like that, you want to make sure that never gets into the storm drain, because the storm drain goes down to where we get our water, the Cumberland River. So we don't want to put anything toxic in the storm drain. So that's why you'll see household hazardous waste. You'll see it where they have the yellow cans here, and it talks about where you could take it to the convenience centers. That is something you do not want to put into your trash. Then we have a list of items that we don't take. Gas tanks, untreated wood, roofing shingles, rocks, bricks, and dirt, medical waste. You know, if we put medicine in the landfills, perhaps one day that might get into our water system. So a couple times a year we do have where you can take your medicine in to turn it in to dispose of it correctly, and you'll see that in the news. So in the back, you will see 3 centers that we have, and we're building one more. So we have 3 centers that are recycling convenience centers. Okay, that's really important to know. Dead animal removal, you call Public Works. If you see graffiti, report graffiti, we request that you do, and we will get that taken care of. Grass cutting on the public right-of-ways. What is a public right-of-way? Does anybody know? It's kind of a concept, but if you have the road here, and there's a little bit of space on both sides of the road, that is called the public right-of-way. There might be utility lines underneath it or above it. That's the public right-of-way. So if you want to plant a tree on the public right-of-way, you have to ask our permission. Why? Well, one is, you never know when you dig what you're going to find. You might dig into a utility line for gas. Also, our engineers that are trained to look for traffic safety, you don't want to plant a tree or a bush when someone drives out of their driveway and tries to look this way. They're blinded by what you planted. So we oversee all of that throughout the whole city, and that's really important. Public Works' first bit of business is public safety, and we take that very, very seriously. Oh, and by the way, we do, I know Codes is going to speak later, but since I'm the horticulturist, I'll talk about this. Your grass is not to be over foot tall, about knee high. So if it is, your neighbor can make a complaint to Codes and say, this is a problem here. and codes will go out and inspect it. So just note that, because we want to keep all the city looking nice. Guardrails, if you see a problem that needs repair, please call us. Illegal trash dumping in the right-of-ways, this just drives me crazy. This morning I was out looking at a landscape, and this was the trash can, and I was walking up to it, and there was trash all here, and I was thinking, that was only 2 more steps and they could have put it in the trash can. I mean, it just makes sense. So we want all citizens to take pride in their community and keep litter where it belongs. Littering from vehicles, another thing that drives me crazy. You can call us and report somebody. Parking meter repairs, we do the parking meters downtown. Pothole patching and repair. I mean, this winter was just a classic pothole maker with the freeze and thaw, and the interstates had potholes bigger than my car. But that's what we do, we'll go out and repair those, but we need to know where they are. Road repair we do, recycling drop-off sites. Let's go to the next brochure. This is about recycling drop-off sites. So some citizens that live in the urban core area, they get their trash picked up once a week, and they're recycling once a month. If you live further out, you're responsible for that. And there are centers that's listed here on the back side, recycling drop-off sites all across the city, where you can bring your recycling to drop off. But let's look at some of these things. First off, your recycling container, big container, that is free to you, okay? And you can have up to 3 recycling carts free to you. You need to call us if you don't have them at that number that we talked about earlier. So remember just a few of these basic things that'll make everyone's life easier. In the middle, we talk about what you can recycle, like cardboard, newspaper. I didn't realize this, I was reading this earlier today. Paperback books can be recycled. The different types of plastics are listed here, but you don't want to put anything that has food waste in it, because that's not able to recycle. So if you use like a paper towel to clean up some food, you cannot recycle that. That goes into your trash. Another thing I learned today is black plastic cannot be recycled. So again, just make sure if you're recycling anything, there's no food or liquid in the containers. And that's greatly appreciated. And we do this because we're preserving our land, and we don't want more landfills, right? We want to preserve our natural resources for future generations. So these products can be reused for future containers. You see the aluminum and then the steel cans and containers. But again, they keep emphasizing that it needs to be free of food waste. And no plastic bags, no glass. The drop-off centers, you can put glass in there, but the home recycles, you cannot put glass. Just think of the people dealing with that could get cut, and then when you try to recycle it and you bring all this glass together, it doesn't work out. So, just some things to remember. Okay, the garbage collection, we talked about that. And you may not know this, but you're supposed to have your garbage can out by 7 a.m. because they get up and get going early, and they should be done by 5 or 6. But you're supposed to, per code, bring your can back into where it belongs in your yard by 7 that night. It's not supposed to linger on the road. And that's for beautification, it's for safety, and also, if your trash can gets stolen, okay, this is your trash can, this is not your recycle can. If the trash can gets stolen, you are responsible and financially to replace it. You come to Public Works and you pay $46.50 to get a new one, and it gets dropped off to your home. So that is a good incentive of why you don't want to leave your trash can out on the road. You don't want it to get stolen. So we also do, remember that what I talked about earlier, right of way, the shoulders of the road? We maintain those and we have those cut. But in your yard, this is really important. You are responsible for maintenance all the way out to the street, okay? So if you have, even though it's the public right-of-way, you are responsible. So if you come out and you have then a sidewalk and then a little green space, you're to be taking care of that. Now let's say it's your business, you own a business or you rent a business space. You are also, even if it's in a public area, business strip area, you're responsible for the maintenance all the way out to the street. So we don't want to see that green strip with grass up this high. And we do. So saves us a lot of work if you just go ahead and take care of it. It shows, I think, many reasons why we want to take care of our landscape and a green space. It shows pride. It shows that your business cares. Where you have beautiful landscaping, they have studies that show that you actually get more customers. There's a sense that it's a quality business. If it's a restaurant, it's a quality restaurant. If you're selling things, it's good quality things that you're going to buy. So there's a lot of reasons why you should take care of your landscape. If you see any issues with street names or things are confusing, give us a call. Street lights and street outings. One thing I do want to say is that we also have a 3-digit number, 311, 311. The problem with that is that it doesn't always work from a cell phone, but from a landline it always works. And it has to do with the cell tower. But if you're out and about and you happen to see that a light is out, we really need to know because we don't want anybody to get hurt. So it would be nice to be able to dial 311 and call us and let us know. Street lights, if you see street lights that are out or flickering, call us. Traffic signals, I mentioned that earlier. And then we do have a 24-hour emergency call line as well. So other things that we work on is beautification. You know, we all want to live in a beautiful city that's rich in culture and history. I was born and raised in Nashville, and I'm really proud of that. I'm proud that we have such beautiful rolling hills and a lot of sources of water. We're not fighting over water like some other cities are. We're trying to make good decisions about how we grow and be responsible. We have different groups that work on that, and within Public Works we have a group called Beautification. So if you're going to see in your neighborhood that there needs to be a project or something that needs to be beautified, each area of town and all that you live in has a beautification commissioner. It's someone that, like you, that lives in the community, that cares, and is taking on this responsibility as a volunteer. And they do community cleanups, landscape projects, all sorts of things. And again, all our new citizens, this is a great opportunity for you to get involved in your community and work on those types of projects as well. Something I'm personally invested in, remember about trees, I'm the tree lady, is that we want to start working with each neighborhood on planting trees. Trees in the right-of-way and trees in your backyard. Why would we want to do that? Well, you know, when we get rain here, I don't know where everyone's from, but we do get rain here. We don't get this light rain, and we do get rain. Y'all remember the rainstorm yesterday afternoon? We get torrential downpours. And you weren't here for the historic 2010 flood, perhaps, but we can flood. And trees are one of the answers to help fight or mitigate floods, okay? So the more trees we have, I think it makes Nashville beautiful, but it's helping us with stormwater management. The trees absorb a lot of water, And then when it's raining hard like it did last night, it breaks that rain from hitting the earth really hard and causing erosion, okay? And then the water rushes down and starts flooding downstream. So these are the things that we want to work on, and trees are one of the answers to that. So coming up in the next 6 months, we're going to work from neighborhood to neighborhood to get people to plant trees as a beautification project in their neighborhood, but also in the backyard. And I guess I have to say this too. It's not just planting trees, that's fun. It's kind of an all-American thing to get out and bring the kids and the dogs and the neighbors and all that and plant trees. But maintaining them is just as important, because I don't know if you've been here for the summers yet, but they can be dry. So trees need to be watered, and then as they grow, they add more value to your property. People will pay more for houses and businesses or just a lot that has more trees on it. So it adds a lot of value to our community. So we have the beautification commissioners out there, and we have a group that advises the city. It's the Metro Tree Advisory Committee, and they're very serious about their work, and they volunteer their time to make sure that we have this tree canopy. Now, one thing we talk about a lot in Nashville is urban forestry. So we all know what traditional forestry is out in the woods where they grow trees for lumber. In our urban setting, that is where I'm focusing most of my time talking here today. So in addition to stormwater management, trees have the ability to absorb the pollution in the air, and that's protecting our lungs. So the trees are absorbing the particulate matter and the ozone, not our lungs. So it really adds a lot of health to our community. So trees are not only beautiful, but they provide a lot of health benefits to us. So, one more thing I'm going to get back to. Another thing that Public Works I think is really neat that does. If you have furniture or appliances that needs to be hauled off, you can call our call center, and within about 1 to 5 business days, you have to bring it out to the curb, okay? But between 1 to 5 business days, we have a relationship with our sheriff's department, our sheriff's office, and they will come haul that off. So it's furniture and appliances. It is not TVs or computers or bags of trash. So there's a very distinctive distinction there of what they will come get. Again, it's appliances like refrigerators, sofas, chairs, tables, etc. So, are there any questions you all have about Metro Public Works or beautification?
So you said how we contact from our cell phone to 311?
Yes. 311 sometimes works. Depends on where you are with the cell tower issue. But that other number that I gave out, 862-8750 from your landline or cell phone number. And again, we count on all of our citizens to help us know, if we have a light out or there's something dangerous out there. We're all out there looking. Any other thoughts? Yes, go ahead. Yes,
So if you have neighbors that do put TVs and things like that outside, is that something that you will call the homeowners association or that we will call you?
If you have a homeowner association, most homeowner associations have guidelines on what is acceptable and what is not, like TVs dumped in the front yard or old cars or things like that. If you're not in a homeowners association, then Metro Codes, who will be talking to you this afternoon, has some guidelines on what is standard in Metro. So again, let's just say your neighbor never mows the yard and the grass is up here. Then someone from Codes will go out and, if they're known, if you let them know about it and cite them.
So do you have a homeowners association? Do you go to them first?
Yes.
And then you have them take care of it, or do you go?
Now I would go to them because Metro is pretty a basic standard, but homeowner associations tend to be more, have more restrictions, which is a good thing. So you'd want to go to them first and let them deal with it first. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I think there's someone that's in this business say that they animal removal. Earlier, I guess like last month, we had a snake on the down, and what we had was like my brother killed it and we just throw it away. But we didn't actually know that.
Well, that's fine. But sometimes, you know, if there was a big animal that killed on the roads and stuff, we need to go get that out immediately so that it doesn't cause an accident. Yes.
What is this, the metal recycling facility beside the bridge here? And why is it in the heart of the town?
Very good question. That's been there forever. Again, I was raised here, and I always remember it being here. Even where the Titan Stadium was a factory type where they built barges. So there has been effort by our mayor to have that redeveloped as an urban green space, and it might at one point, but the families that have that, they're not interested in that quite yet. But it's a metals place, and you can bring metal there yourself, and they weigh it, and they see what kind of metal it is, and they'll pay you for it. But it's a big operation, PSI.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
The gentleman who came in ago, I don't know what if he answered the question. The concern is that Nashville is going up, and I cannot see what's in the middle of the city. And there's a place right here where they're recycling place, and people, Nashville is a city that is a city that close to all the cities in the United States. They said the possibility that they state or the city of mandates to tell the families, look, we have grown up, it's not the 60s, you know, gotta move somewhere else, you know, we do respect their, you know, there can be laws that we can do that.
They have been asked, and they think what they're doing right now is fine for them. But they do realize that that property has high value. And so if they can find another place, or the city can find another place for them that's just as advantageous for them, maybe one day in the next, in my lifetime, you know, they'll consider it. But there is a dissent degree that we can come in and force them to leave. But you're right, and you're right, that that property is very valuable, and maybe they'll come make the decision based on that property value. There have been contests. We have a civic design center, and about 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, they had contests from all over, asked people from all over the country to design what that space could look like, and it was pretty exciting of what the potential is there. Take one more question. Yes, ma'am.
I was just wondering, how do you guys decide which projects to take on, public works projects to take on? Like, what projects are like on?
That's a very good question. Sometimes it bubbles up from a community where there perhaps a very, like something that just happened recently out towards McCabe's Park. The traffic there was terrible, and so the community came together with the city councilman and the beautification commissioner, and we just finished a project at a roundabout, which really solves a lot of crisis in the traffic. So sometimes it's that way. It's what is helps the most people, and for us, it's capital money that has to go into it, so we have to piecemeal it out. But your city council member is a direct contact for new projects with the mayor's office, and that's where the funds come from.
All right, well, thank you so much, Jennifer, for being here.
Absolutely. I'm going to leave my cards. It's Jennifer Smith, and they're going to be in the back. If your neighborhood ever is interested in learning more about tree planting, we just get a lot of tree planting done in this community by volunteers. It's a really great thing. I feel like planting a tree builds community. And recently I heard this young man, about 25 years old, we worked with his company to plant a bunch of trees just over here in Shelby Park, which is just a mile or so away. And after the project, I was walking out and I heard him say, I feel really good about myself. And I just thought that was great. So tree planting makes you feel good, it makes the community feel good. Thank you so much.
All right, and now we are so lucky to have Bill Penn here. He is the Assistant Director of the Property Standards Division at Metro Codes, which basically means he's in charge of making sure all of our codes are enforced. And you may ask, what are our codes? What does that mean? That is what Bill is going to tell us. So welcome, Bill.
Well, it's always a pleasure to come and talk to folks about what the Codes Department does. And there were a couple of questions that came out that I think I might be able to help with as far as a response to. Now, the Codes Department is primarily concerned with three things. We want to make sure that everything that gets built is built according to a standard whereby
Now Jennifer can leave. Sorry.
Okay. We're concerned with everything that gets built. So everything that gets built in Davidson County that's 100 square feet or larger, we have some involvement in it. Then we want to make sure that whatever gets built is consistent with how the land that project is being built on is correct. And then the third thing is, once it gets built, we want to make sure that it gets maintained. So there's three main things that the Codes Department does. And so let me start with the zoning part and the permitting part, because a couple of questions about the PSC metals came out about, well, why are they there on that prime piece of real estate? Why can't we do something about that? Well, the law, which goes from federal law down to state law down to local law, says that if a use is legal, then we cannot deny a person the use of their land as long as the use of that land is legal and consistent with the zoning for that particular property. At the time that PSC Metal, in fact it was something else long before it was PSC, came to that location, it was legal for it to operate there. So as long as they continue to operate that type of facility there, Metro really can't do anything about them doing it. That we have to allow them because they have a legal right to operate. Now that doesn't mean that if the needs of the community were such that it was important for Metro to cause that use to go away, that they couldn't do that, but that's a very long and laborious process, and it really has to be something that is significant to cause us to do that. But every piece of property in Davidson County has a zoning category. And most people, they've heard of residential, you've heard of commercial, but there's some other categories like industrial. That site where PSC is, that's an industrial site, which means they can do a lot of things there that you really couldn't do anywhere else. In Davidson County, there aren't a whole lot of industrial sites like that anymore because most of those sites have pretty much gone away because heavy manufacturing has gone away from Davidson County. Most of the operations, commercial, that are going on are what you would consider light industrials, or those kinds of things. So those kinds of sites are rare and far and in between. But whenever a project gets considered in Davidson County, the first thing that they want to do is to make sure that the zoning is consistent with the project that they want to build, because a lot of folks sometimes they put they get it in reverse. They decide what they want to do, they buy a piece of land or they rent a building to do their business, only to find out that that business can't operate at that particular location because it's not zoned for that. And we always try to tell people, the first thing you're going to do if you're going to start a business, once you found your location, come down to the Codes Department and make sure that that business can operate at that location. And a lot of times when people get their business license, they say, well, I've got my business license, I'm good to go. Your business license only gives you permission to operate a business. It doesn't give you permission to operate that business at that particular location. The business license basically sets you up so that you can pay taxes on the profits that you derive from your business. And there may be some other issues depending on the type of business. But if your site is not zoned for the activity that you want to do, then you can't operate legally the business, even if you have a business license. So that's the first step. Now, once you come through that process, the next thing is, are you going to build something or are you going to use an existing property? If you decide that you're going to build something, especially if it's commercial, then we have to see plans that have to be approved by, those plans have to be drawn up and stamped by an architect. Now, Metro has really gone very far forward in that not only we review paper plans, but right now we are able to review electronic plans. A lot of architects now use CAD software. Some of you may be familiar with that. And they can actually send those plans electronically to us. We can review, make comments on, so it speeds up the review process. But once the plan gets reviewed and accepted and all the changes that are necessary are done, then that project is actually issued a building permit to allow it to begin construction. A lot of times folks get in trouble. Generally, your large commercial projects, we don't have a problem with those because those folks know that they have to have a building permit in order to do the project. But the smaller projects are where we tend to have a problem because those folks may not understand that they have to have a building permit, especially if they're trying to do the work themselves. Generally speaking, if it's a commercial project, you're going to need a contractor to do any work on the building in order to make sure that that building complies with the building code. And that's very important because a lot of times people, they have a little carpentry skill and they think, oh, well, I can put this wall in or I can take that wall out or I can do that. And it's only later on down the road that the building fails because they did something that didn't comply with the code. So you really have to be careful, and that's why we stress getting an architect for a commercial plan, especially a project, and also making sure that you hire a contractor. If you're going to do something on a residential property, let's say you want to add a room onto your house. A lot of homeowners will maybe find a contractor, but the contractor will say, well, now, you go ahead and get that permit, and then once you get it, I'll do the work. Wrong answer. If you, as a residential property owner, obtains the permit, guess who's responsible for making sure that anything that's done meets the code? Exactly. Okay, you don't want to be responsible because if you are and it fails, when our inspector comes out and they fail it, then you have to negotiate, haggle with, fight with, in some cases, your contractor to get them to fix the problem. See, and the other thing that you should never do, a lot of contractors, they will come in and say, well, okay, I can do this job, it's going to cost $10,000. As soon as you give me the check, I'll get started. Never, ever, ever, ever pay a contractor up front. Never. If they have to have all the money up front, then you need to get another contractor. The reason is, once I get your $10,000, if I decide I want to do another job, I go and do another job. Or maybe I decide, you know what, that project, it's too hard, I underestimated, so I've decided I've done $10,000 worth of work, and if you want me to finish it, it's going to be $5,000 more. Never pay it all. Generally speaking, a third to 50% of what it's going to cost that you're quoted is a good figure. If they want more than that, you really need to look for another contractor. And speaking of contractors, there are two levels of contractors that you need to look for depending on your project that you're going to do. If your project is going to cost $25,000 or less to complete, then you can hire what is called a home improvement contractor. But if your project is going to be more than $25,000 in cost, then you have to hire a general contractor. Now, what's the difference? The difference has to do with the liability and insurance and what have you, and cost bond that a general contractor has to have. Because if a guy is going to do a $50,000, $100,000 project and he messes up, let's say he's working on a wall and because of what he's doing, that wall collapses, he has to have liability insurance to cover that. Otherwise, the property owner is stuck with that bill, and you don't want that. So that's the requirements for a general contractor. Because of the size of the jobs that they do, they are able to handle much higher liability. That home improvement contractor, a lot less liability, so if something happens, a lot of times you may be stuck with that because his liability insurance is not as much. So always make sure anything, basically, if any building project over 100 square feet requires a building permit. If you're going to get a shed from Home Depot or Lowe's or some of these other places, they have these pre-built sheds and they'll deliver them to your property. If it's bigger than 10 feet by 10 feet, you have to have a permit, even though it's already built, and all they're going to do is set it down in your yard wherever you want it. You still have to have a building permit to locate that on your property. And the other thing to think about, and this really comes into play no matter whether it's commercial or residential, every piece of property has what's called a setback. Now, what is a setback? If you look at a piece of property and a structure on the property, the building is located so many feet from the front edge of the right-of-way. And then on either side of that building, there's an area that you can't build in, and then in the back of the property, there's an area that you can't build in. How many of y'all seen skinny houses? Y'all know what I'm talking about, skinny houses? Now see, if you're young, skinny houses are okay. But see, I'm old enough to where I don't want to walk over 3 flights of steps to get, upstairs. But these skinny houses, because of the way they're building them, they have to be very careful about that because they're trying to maximize all of the land area on that parcel. Well, what happens sometimes is, everybody wants a fireplace, but they don't want the traditional fireplace. They make these fireplaces that they just sort of stick in, and it's what they call cantilevered. The actual firebox is cantilevered. It means it sticks out side of the building. Well, we've had a number of these where it stuck out into the side setback because they're maximized, so they're getting as close to the setback as they can. Well, unfortunately for a few builders, they didn't find out that they were in the setback until after they'd framed up and put siding on and were beginning to work on the interior. And lo and behold, when the framing inspector comes out to do his inspection, he goes, "Hey, you're in the setback." Well, unfortunately, what they have to do is they have to tear all of that off and redo the carpentry in order to comply with the setback. So a lot of things go into a building project to make sure that it meets the code. But the code, a lot of people sometimes complain about the building code. Oh, it's too strict. They used to build houses thousands of years ago. They didn't have all these codes. Well, in actuality, they had codes back in Babylon. There was a building code in Babylon during that time, but it was a pretty simple code. If you built a house and it fell in on the owner and they were killed, then you were killed. And if they lived but caused them some financial harm, then you had to compensate them plus a little extra for your building project. Now, a lot of times I tell contractors, boy, I tell you what, if we had the Babylonian code today, we wouldn't have some of the problems that we have with buildings being built today, we wouldn't have. But codes go back, and see, it's really important because without a code, without a standard to go by, then I may build a house one way, but another guy builds it another way, and you as a property owner, you want to know that wherever you go, whatever building you walk into, it's not going to fall in on you, that the doors are going to work, that you've got some kind of fire protection or to let you know in case there's a fire. That's why, I've had folks complain about having to have smoke detectors. Now, why would you complain about having to have a smoke detector when if your house catches on fire, you want to know that on the front end? Because I tell people, I said, I ask them, I said, do you have a cat or a dog? And they said, well, yeah, I've got a cat and a dog. Okay, I said, now this is the scenario. The house is on fire. You don't have a smoke detector, but you do have a cat and a dog. Now the dog is gonna go and lick you and drag you and wake you and get you out of the house. But then a cat, and I know there's cat lovers in here, but I'm gonna tell you, all you cat people, the cat isn't gonna go all the way in the room. The cat's gonna go to the door and he's gonna say, yo dog, the house is on fire, you might wanna get out, okay? And he's not even gonna do it in a loud voice, just gonna say, yeah, come on, the house on fire. He's gonna do that 2 times, and he's gonna get ready to do it a 3rd time, he's gonna say, well, you know what, he ain't getting up, I'm leaving. Okay, now the dog will burn up in there with you if you don't leave, but the cat's gonna abandon you. But getting back to the point, all these safety things that are required by the code, a lot of thought has gone into them because it's all about safety. Several years ago, we had a rash of decks coming away from buildings, multi-story decks, that all of a sudden people were out, doing the barbecue, and next thing you know, they're on the ground. And they couldn't figure out what is going on. Well, what was happening was builders were trying to get projects built very quickly. So they weren't attaching the decks to the building according to the code. When you stood and looked at it from the ground, it looked like it was properly attached. But when our building inspectors go out to look at things, they don't tear things apart to make sure that what's on the other side is correct. They look at what's there and decide whether or not, well, okay, they have the right bolts, it looks like the right bolts. Surely they've anchored them into the right position. Well, sometimes they don't. And you never find these things out until after the builder has gone, he's gone on to the next project, you can't be found, and then your deck falls off, and you're trying to find it. And it usually falls off right after the statute of limitations for the project expires. That's when the deck falls off, or the pipes burst, or the ceiling collapses. A lot of things can happen. So we've gone through the process of obtaining a building permit. It gets reviewed by a number of agencies within the codes department. Depending on the type of project you're going to build, you'll probably have to go through the fire marshal's office, because the fire marshal has to make sure that those aspects of fire protection are provided if it's a commercial building. They have to make sure that you have means of egress. It's amazing how people will not sometimes consider, how am I going to get out of a building if there's a fire or there's some emergency? Because every door, every window in a building costs money. And so a lot of times folks will try to maximize their investment by reducing the number of exits in a building to the bare minimum. But I always have the axiom, there can never be too many doors and windows in case of an emergency to get out. But so all these things are looked at and important. The zoning is consistent. They make sure that the zoning is consistent, so your project has now been reviewed and it can be built, and it's built. Now, really the fun part of codes, because see, anybody can design a building, then they go out and build it. That's easy stuff. That's easy stuff. Because you have computers and all of that to design the building, and then everybody goes out and looks at it, and it's all shiny and new and pretty. What I like to tell people is come back in a year or two and look at the condition of the building after it has been built, because that's where the real fun, in my opinion, begins, okay? Now, and I've had people that tell me, well, Bill, you don't have to worry about that in Brentwood and Bellevue and those areas because, because those kinds of things just don't happen. Well, I'm here to tell you, it doesn't matter how much money you spend or how much money has been spent. I can take you anywhere in Davidson County and point to codes violations on a property. Give you a case in point. There was a country western singer who spent an enormous amount of money on his house. But he didn't really consider some zoning considerations, had to work through that issue, and he's decided that he wants to use his property in a way that is not consistent with his neighbors. But he's a very smart individual in that he knows exactly the line that he can operate in. And so he has events and other things that upset his neighbors, but when we get called and we go out and look at it, we have to tell folks, No, he's operating within, he can have buses of people come to his property, and he can play music as long as it's not as loud and that kind of thing. So all kinds of things happen all over Davidson County. But property standards, we deal with not only the condition of the property, but whether or not the property meets the zoning requirements. And also, we look at some other issues, the sanitation issues that may arise. We look at noise issues. Now, there's two noise standards. There's one noise standard that has to do with commercial properties impacting a residential property. So let's say you live next door to PSC Metals, and they're bringing their trucks in at 2 o'clock in the morning, and they're clanking, and it just knocks you up. You wake up in the middle of the night because you hear all this. Well, I can become involved in controlling that kind of noise. But let's say your neighbor has just bought himself a new surround sound stereo system. He's got the big 70-inch TV, and he's got the big speakers, and he doesn't just want it to be like the theater. He wants it to be like, you know, he's watching a war movie, and he wants to really feel his house shake when those bombs go off. That's considered, that's called amplified noise. The codes department does not deal with amplified noise. If it's amplified noise, that is the Metro Police Department, okay? So if you ever have that kind of an issue, call the Metro Police, because the Metro Police can actually issue a citation to cause them to turn their music down or to turn it off even if they don't comply. And there are some considerations depending on where you are. If you're in the downtown area where, you know, there's a lot of mixed use going on in and around the downtown area, there's some different standards for them, because we recognize that this is Music City, and being Music City, people are going to play music. So if you're going to live, and I tell you, it's kind of interesting, because we get people who are living in the high-rise towers downtown, and they call us complaining about the noise. And I said, wait a minute, where you live like above a honky-tonk. What do you're going to hear it, okay? I mean, you know. So that's something to consider. But they do get involved with noise. Now, we had a question about a sofa being, or that kind of thing, furniture in somebody's yard. We can deal with that. You can call us about that if you talk to your neighborhood association, I mean, not your neighborhood association, but your homeowners association, and if they can't handle the problem, then we can become involved. All requests that are turned into us concerning those kinds of things are anonymous. You don't have to give us your name. You don't have to identify who you are or anything. But one thing we do need is the address of where the violation is and a description of what it is. Please do not call us and say it's over there. You'll see it when you drive down the road, okay? Because I had one of those where a lady called, no, it was a guy, he called, said there's a gold car parked on this street. It's been there forever, it's got to go. If you don't get it gone, I'm calling Channel 4 and the mayor's office. Well, I'm thinking, okay, I don't want the mayor's office to be called. I don't want Channel 4 to be called. So I send my guy out there. He didn't have an address. He said, but you can't miss it. Well, my guy found the car. Okay, he found it. Unfortunately, this was a very long street, and there were two gold vehicles, one on either end. So we were very excited and proud when we made that vehicle go away. And so this guy calls back, and he is madder than a wet hen, and he's talking about, you guys, what am I going to have to do? Am I going to have to get on the news and complain about this car? And he said, well, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Well, I've got pictures of it. I said, well, send me the picture. Well, he sent me the picture. It was the same car, just a different year, but essentially the same car, almost same color. I said, well, you told me it was on this street. We made one go away on that street. I said, this is why you have to give me the address. He goes, oh, okay, all right. The codes department, though, we deal with a lot of things. I think, did everybody get a copy of the little brochure there? Good.
At the next meeting as well, if some of you guys didn't get a copy.
Okay, I can get it. But that would describe all the types of things that my division, property standards, gets involved in. Basically, we want to make sure that the condition of the property is such, excuse me, that it does not interfere or conflict with your ability to enjoy your property. If a neighbor has a vehicle that does not operate that's on the property, that's a codes violation. If they have a vehicle on the property that doesn't have a current metal plate on it, that's a violation. If they have indoor furniture that they're using outdoors. Now, I came from the city of Chattanooga, and in Chattanooga I didn't see this, but I came to Nashville, and the one thing that I saw all over the place are the third row seats out of vans. Now, I don't know what it is, but they take the third row seat out and they sit it in the backyard. Now, why you would want to do that, I don't know, but we've seen a lot of that. We need to make sure that if you have stuff needs to be inside a garage with a door. You can't put stuff under the carport because that's not considered a structure. And because of that, it's a violation. If you have building materials, now a lot of you ladies may not do this, but a lot of guys, we have this idea we're going to build something, we're going to build a deck, or we're going to do something. And so we buy all the materials. But then, the football game comes on, so I'm going to watch that, and after that's over, I'm going to go out. Then, of course, something else happens. The next thing you know, I never get back to that building project. Well, you cannot have, excuse me, building materials in your yard, excuse me, that are not being utilized. If you're not going to use them, then they need to be put in a garage or some other place, stored until you're ready to use them. Another thing is we get a lot of calls about trees. My neighbor has a tree, and it's growing, its limbs are growing over into my yard. You need to tell him to cut his tree. I can't tell him to cut his tree. It's not a codes violation. That is a civil matter between adjoining property owners. Now, if the tree is on the right-of-way, in Metro's right-of-way, and causing a problem, then I can contact Public Works and we can take care of the tree. But if it's on private property, I can't do anything about it. Also, it was mentioned earlier about homeowners associations. I cannot enforce any homeowner association restrictive covenants. Flagpoles. There is no law in Metro that says you cannot have a flagpole in your yard. But there are restrictive covenants in some subdivisions that say you can't have a flagpole. If your neighbor puts up one, I can't do anything about that. That's something that the homeowners association would have to deal with. So if there's something in your homeowners association restrictive covenants that is above and beyond what we do in the codes department, then that's something that you have to take up with the homeowners association. I think I've covered all the major things that we do. You have the brochure, and can I have a couple?
One or two questions you've got time for?
Yes, ma'am.
As a backyard chicken owner, you must address backyard chickens and also talk about if bees are legal or not.
I think bees are okay. You need to get with the Metro Health Department on that. Now, chickens are also the Metro Health Department. I have no jurisdiction, thank goodness. Now I love chickens, don't get me wrong. My neighbor, I live in Old Hickory, I just moved there. My next door neighbor behind me, he has chickens. Now, I did warn him. I said the only good chicken is a fried chicken, okay? But no chickens, the chickens though, that is, you can have, the number of chickens that you can have depends on your property and your property size. There is a limit to how many you can have. You cannot have roosters. You can have the girls, but you can't have the boys. Okay, so if you have a rooster, okay.
Even if you don't have a fence, it's okay if you keep the chickens?
The chickens have to be contained.
Okay, no, I mean like your yard, you have to have a fence.
You have to, they have to be,
In the cage, you
they have to have a coop. Now, I can't remember about the fencing. I cannot remember if you have to have, because we don't, what we decided was Bill Penn would know nothing about chickens, that he would refer all the chicken stuff to the health department. My recommendation, though, would be that if you're going to have chickens, is to have them in a fenced yard in addition to your chicken coop. Because again, if El Pollo escapes, he could be barbecue. And so you don't want that. And also, again, a lot, some people are actually frightened of chickens. Now my wife is a country girl, and she grew up around chickens and things like that, and it doesn't bother her. But I know several people, even guys, that as long as the chicken is in the meat case at the store, they're okay. They don't want to meet a live chicken. They just don't. But I would recommend, I can't remember if the ordinance requires a fence around your property, but it does require that the chickens be contained so that they don't get out. So you may have to have, your coop has to be such that they can be sort of, it's like you can have a, right. Yeah, you don't have to have a fence per se.
And my question, if you don't have a fence, do you have to keep them always in their coop, or just you can let them have a free time sometimes?
They're supposed to be contained at all times. Now, by the time, and if you have trained chickens that you can let out and call and they come back, that's probably, I mean, the intent of the regulation is to prevent chickens from just escaping and being all over the place. So I think a lot of this has to do with if you manage your chickens in that, because my neighbor lets his chickens out. Now my neighbor has a fence around his house, so there's no chance of his chickens escaping, but he does let them out, you know, so they can get some exercise or whatever. And I've met the chickens, and they're really cool.
Complain about your chicken, like, and you don't have a fence, so you have to have.
I think we might need to take up any chicken questions after he's done, because it's
Yeah.
really helping out the chicken.
Okay.
Let's have one more question, and then we're all going to take a break real quick. So I know there's a bunch more people with questions, so let's do one more question for Bill, and then Bill, if you can stay for 5 minutes.
I can do that, sure.
Afterwards,
Yeah.
you can catch Bill during our last three minutes, but I want to allow somebody else to go.
Okay.
Bill, good luck.
All right. Me?
Sure.
All right. I just, you mentioned something about the statutes of limitation. Just wanted to know, with the code, how long the statutes of limitation if you're involved in
That depends on the project. Some projects have longer timelines than other projects. Generally speaking, we try to get involved within 2 years of a project being completed. Beyond that, it becomes a little more difficult. And I will tell you that a lot of times you have to be, contractors, developers are coming and going, and so you have to kind of be careful. Because like sometimes they'll be building a subdivision, and all of a sudden they just stop. That's a good sign that that developer may have gone bankrupt. So you have to kind of be weary of that. I would say that if you've got an issue with say your house, and it was done more than 2 or 3 years ago, you'd have to contact our department to find out whether or not what that situation is with the cost bond and whether or not it's still in effect. Because if it's not, then it's a civil matter that you'd have to pursue with that builder.
All right, well, thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Everybody, we're going to take a 6-minute break. The folks from NES are here, but I want to give everybody a chance to use the restrooms that are here for you too. So please come back in 6 minutes. We have, for the first time ever in the history of MyCity, we've got some folks from NES, the Nashville Electric Service, here with us to talk about how you can save money on your electric bill and even more. So we have Teresa Corlew here. She's the Chief Customer Service Officer for NES. And Teresa has been working in customer service for more than 35 years. So she is truly an expert. And she, for us, is kind of the public face of NES. So I'm sure she can answer all your questions. And here she is to tell us about NES.
I'm not real sure I can answer all the questions, so I brought 2 wonderful helpers. Well, as she said, my name is Teresa Corlew, and I'm Vice President of Customer Relations and Corporate Communications at Nashville Electric Service, which everybody calls NES. Joining me today are Lemon Poindexter, she's in the pink over there, and Mary Beth Hostetler, she's beside her over there. Lemon is a Customer Relations Supervisor, and Mary Beth is a Service Advisor 3 in the Customer Service Department. And together, we hope that we can answer the questions that you have and share some information with you. I'll share just a few facts about our organization. NES is the 12th largest public electric utility in the nation, serving more than 370,000 customers who live in Davidson County and portions of the 6 surrounding counties. And those are Cheatham, Robertson, Rutherford, Sumner, Williamson, and Wilson. So we don't serve all of those counties, but portions of them, but we do serve all of Davidson County. NES has revenues in excess of $1.2 billion and is actually Metro's largest taxpayer. Last year, NES paid nearly $32 million in taxes to Metro and the 6 surrounding counties. NES purchases all of the power that we distribute from the Tennessee Valley Authority that's known as TVA. We don't generate any of the power that we distribute. TVA serves all of the southern states. They have 9 million people in 7 southeastern states that they serve. Thanks to TVA and their generation costs and to NES and our distribution system, we have some of the lowest rates in the country. The average rates in the country are about 12.5 cents a kilowatt hour, and we are able to provide it at a little less than 10 cents a kilowatt hour. We have just under 1,000 employees, and that fluctuates back and forth, usually anywhere from 940 to maybe 960 employees. And we're one of only 4% of the public utilities in the country to earn the industry's highest honor for safety and reliability, and that came from the American Public Power Association. It's called the RP3 Award, which stands for Reliable Public Power Provider. And we've received that award for the 3rd time, just this past year. As you might imagine, because we provide electricity, we're a 24/7 operation. So we have employees that are there 24 hours, 7 days a week. If the power goes out, there's somebody there ready to get on the job and get it back on. Our linemen in particular, you've probably seen them in the big bucket trucks all around town. In fact, April 18th of this month is Lineman Appreciation Day. It's a national day, and we're going to be doing some special things for the linemen this month. Our regular office hours, we're not open 24/7 for just regular stuff. Our regular office hours in the call center are 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. And the customer lobby hours of operation, which our main lobby is at 1214 Church Street. It's where you would likely see Miss Poindexter if you came to visit us there. Those hours are 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And I was going to tell you just a little bit about the programs and services that we have, and I'm just going to briefly touch on them, and then if you have any questions about any particular program, we can either answer it here or happy to give you some information when the program ends. We have a program called Balanced Billing. In Nashville, we have a climate that ranges from very hot to very cold to everything in between, which if you've lived here any time, you know that. So electric bills tend to be really high in the winter months and in the summer months. So balanced billing is a program that helps spread out those highs and lows of your electric bill and helps balance it out with those lower bills that you get in the spring and fall. It changes only a little bit, slightly, just a few dollars from month to month. And what they do is they do a calculation, they do their magic up in our billing area, and your monthly bill becomes a rolling average of your kilowatt hour usage during the previous months plus your usage for the current month. So while it's not exactly the same amount any month, it's not going to vary much more than $5, $6 at the most. So that way you don't have to worry about having a $400 bill in August or February and a $40 bill in April or October. It sort of helps balance that out. We have a lot of people that use that program. We also have a program called eBill. It allows customers to view, manage, and pay their electric bills electronically on the computer or by phone. You can pay your electric bill by credit card, debit card, or check by phone with a checking or savings account. Our e-bill is free. If you choose to make a one-time payment by debit or credit card, the credit card company assesses a $2.25 fee. But e-bill is completely free, and I think we have close to 100,000 of our customers that are on e-bill. We also have what are called kiosks, bill-paying kiosks, in more than 40 MAPCO Express and Exxon Tiger Market locations throughout our service territory. And they accept NES bills for a $2 fee. Again, that fee, that's not anything that NES collects, that's what the merchant charges to handle the bill. But those are also widely used. We have customer service advisors who work in the call center and in the customer lobby who speak both English and Spanish. I think we have, 8 bilingual reps? And then for customers who speak languages other than English or Spanish, we have a program that's called the Language Line, and it provides interpreters for us, so via a 3-way call, we can converse and transact whatever business we need to transact in any language. I don't think we found a language we haven't been able to handle before. We also have a program for customers who are critically ill and rely on power for life support equipment. We call it the Critical Referral Program, and during individual outages, NES will expedite restoration of service to these critically ill, the homes where these critically ill patients are. Now, it's called a referral program for a reason, and that is because we do our best to get the power back on to those homes, but there are some instances when the damage is so widespread we cannot. So if it's just the power's out or a localized outage in your neighborhood and there's someone who's critically ill, we can get that power back pretty quickly. But if it's a tornado or a major thunderstorm or a major ice storm, the patients and their families really need to have an emergency backup plan, because it might not do us any good. We could come to your home and turn your electricity back on, but if the main substation serving your home is so damaged that it can't serve the neighborhood, it's not going to do us any good to try to get your power restored. So we make sure people understand that, or we try to. We have a program that's a voluntary program called Project Help, and it allows customers to add $1 or more to their electric bill each month, and all of those funds that are added go into a fund called the Project Help Fund, and then all those monies are forwarded to a charitable organization in Nashville called NeedLink, and they distribute those funds to individuals and families in need to help them pay their electric bills when they are having trouble doing so. They are all professionals. They've been in, the NeedLink people are all professionals. They don't work for NES. They distribute the money based on set guidelines, so they do a really good program, a really good job with that. And then I heard Jennifer talking earlier about trees, and I heard Bill talking about trees. I'm going to talk about trees just a little bit. Jennifer and Bill, Jennifer, if she were here, she would laugh at me saying this. She wants to talk about how to save trees. NES trims trees. So we get along really well, but and she helps us with our programs, but trees are the major cause of power outages on the NES system. They just are. And so because of that, and we're very heavily treed in Middle Tennessee, in case you haven't noticed. So we have to trim trees because they are the major cause of power outages, so we can minimize those power interruptions as much as possible. We want you to know we're coming, though, so we have a very extensive communication program. to let you know we're coming to your neighborhood. We'll communicate with you, say, hey, we're in your area doing planning. Hey, we're getting ready to come. We'll leave you communication saying your tree needs to be trimmed. Here's what we think we're going to do. We have certified arborists on our staff to make sure that the tree is trimmed properly and it's not going to die. If we have to trim the tree so much that it's going to make it look horrible, or it's just not going to live once we trim it, then we have a program, a replacement program, where we will come in and actually take the tree down for you for free and plant a lower growing tree that won't grow into the lines for you. And all of that's free of charge to you. It helps us in the long run, and I don't know if you've ever if you've ever had a tree removed, you know that is a very expensive proposition, so it's a good thing for customers as well. And then last but not least, I think they passed out the little brochures, and it's our little summer infographic. It's a brochure that gives a little more information and tools to help you conserve energy. Right now it's very pleasant outside, but in a few months it will be very hot here. It gives some tools or some ideas, tips on what you can do to help save energy on your, help save money on your power bill. If a lot of these tips, as well as much more information, is available on our website, which is nespower.com. If you go on there, there are actually online tools, energy tools that you can go on and plug in various parts of your home, like what size water heater you have, or what kind of heat you have, what kind of cooling you have, and it can run some calculations for you. So if you want to play around with that, there's all kinds of tools that we've got to help you with that. We also sponsor something called Energy Saver Workshops, and you may have seen these posters around. We saw one driving over here in a little coffee shop. We have 4 or 5 of these a year. They're free workshops, and when you attend them, you receive a free energy-saving toolkit valued at $25 just for coming to the workshop. The kit includes caulk, expanding foam for insulation, weather stripping, different things like that. We've got one that's upcoming on May 9th at the Margaret Maddox YMCA on Gallatin Pike, another on August the 15th at the Sumner County YMCA in Hendersonville, September 26th at the Bellevue YMCA on Highway 100, and October 17 right here at East Park Community Center. So if you can join us at one of those, you'll find a wealth of information, and they can actually show you how to do some of those do-it-yourself projects that help you with your bills. So those are just a few of the programs and services we offer. I'm going to turn it over to Mary Beth and Lemon, and they're going to tell you a little bit about how to sign up for service, or how to get information that you might need to assist people who qualify for DACA or DAPA, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions you might have too. So.
Hello, everyone. We just have some, you've received a handout with some information regarding how to request a record, which may be helpful for proof of residency in the U.S., and how to apply for electric service. The steps to request the record or to apply for service, both of those are very simple. We try to make them very simple for you. As far as the requesting a record, for those of you that may need to be showing proof of residency in the U.S., it's referred to as a customer history. That's what we refer to. So if you were to ever contact us, if you referred to it as customer history, that would be helpful. It basically provides a cumulative history of the history of your turn on and turn off dates of all the premises or the addresses of where you've resided while you've had service with Nashville Electric Service. We normally can produce that record for you pretty immediately, the same day, and there is no cost to you. It's a very simple printout for you. So you can request that in person or over the phone, And requesting it in person, certainly at our main office, which is at 1214 Church Street. And as Teresa mentioned, our hours in the office are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And if you choose to come into the office, you will need 2 forms of identification, and one of those forms would have to be a photo ID. Now, if you prefer to call customer relations, then we can be reached at 615-736-6900, and our hours are 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday, and then on Saturday from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And if you choose to call over the phone, then at that point you are required to verify one form of identification with us in order for us to fax or mail or whatever, if you wanted to get the customer history by contacting us over the phone. As far as applying for electric service, we do try to make that as simple as we can for you. Our website, www.nespower.com, has a lot of valuable information of what you would need, or you can contact us again in customer relations, and we'd be happy to assist you with the information and how to take care of that. We do have, on the reverse side, we have what we consider to be acceptable IDs. So those would be acceptable, any of those would be acceptable in the event you were either applying for service or needing to request your record of history with us. And that's all I have. Do you have anything to add?
I think the only thing I would add is that, I guess, just working in the lobby, and this would be good information for any of y'all that are coming in, or I know a lot of agencies bring people in to sign up for service. And one of the biggest issues we run into is what she was saying on the back, as far as the acceptable forms of ID. So that's why we wanted you to have that, so you know what you need to bring in to sign up for service.
Questions? Yes.
Sometimes for the new arrivals, you ask for a deposit to start service.
I'm sorry?
You ask for a deposit to start the service for new arrivals, new Americans.
Yes. NES does have a security deposit that to apply for electric service, and for residential it's $180. NES does offer ways to waive that deposit. We offer, if a customer has an acceptable letter of credit from another gas or electric utility, or we do we ask if you want us to do a credit check for you, which is at no cost to you. So we do offer ways to waive that. Sometimes, if those two cannot be met, then yes, we do request a security deposit of $180. Just to let you know, I don't want to say too much, but the deposit, if you do have to pay that deposit, it is refundable to you after a year of satisfactory history with us. And after that 12 months, then we apply it to your bill with interest, or if you want to request a refund at that time, we'll be happy to request a refund for you as well. So. Yes.
Okay, so 4 years ago, NES came to our neighborhood and cut some of our trees. But right now we have 2 trees at the end of our house that's growing and covering the flood. And I was telling my mom the other day, if she didn't see NES, do we contact you guys for that, or?
Why don't I get your name and number when we leave, and I'll we trim trees all the time, it's in a rotation.
Okay, all right. Because we haven't seen anybody come around do something.
Oh, we'll be there. It's one of the most interesting things to do. We're either very popular or very unpopular.
I think it just seems, sometimes there's scams coming around.
Oh, true.
That's even more scary when they come around and they're like, we're with NES, we're with so-and-so, we're choosing like, can I see some form of identification? They try to make up all these things. But you did say,
I'm so glad you said that. Yeah, you're exactly right. We run, we should have mentioned this because there are scams all the time. Everyone will have, they'll be in a marked NES vehicle, they should have proper ID to show you, and if they can't show never collect money from people, ever. So don't give anybody money that says they're from the
Maybe going to talk about over the phone.
While she's talking about scams,
Yes.
anybody who ever calls you and asks for, because this happens, people come in the lobby where they pay people $600, $800 on their electric bill. If anybody ever calls you and says, we never call and collect money. NES never call. The way NES collects money if you don't pay, you know, we just kind of turn it off. Just for a little while till you come in. But no, we never call and ask for money over the phone. If anybody, even if the number says, because people have shown us this in the office, if your phone it says 615-736-6900 and we're called to ask you for money,
It's not us.
it's not us. We never call and ask you for money.
We're not going to call and ask you to make a payment with me. It would always be you contacting us,
And there are
and we
a lot of
have had
scams going
that.
around during
So, you know, and if you ever have a, you know, it's better to be safe than sorry. So if you ever doubt, then I would just hang up and then call us at NES, and then we're happy to assist you and let you know, well, and we would tell you that would not be us, because we do not call over the phone to ask you to process a payment with us.
I got two questions. One is, most of the time I'm wondering, NES, like my neighborhood, they pay them twice to cut one tree down. First they came to trim it. I said to myself, excuse me, does this make sense? Just cut it, and so you don't have to come back. They did twice, I think 3 times. And that's one, why does that have to be waste of time, manpower, money?
You mean twice in a short amount of time, or twice?
Right, a certain amount of time, you know, they came and trimmed it down.
Probably what happened is they came, they were supposed to trim it a certain way. Then we have contractors that come in and do the work for us. Then whoever it was that went back to check said, you didn't do it right, and made them come back out and do it again. If you don't want your tree, we'll talk to you about it.
The next one is, the brother just mentioned it a minute ago, about the new arrivals, new Americans coming here. Now, if they go to NES and say, well, you pay $125 deposit. They don't have money, they're refugees, they just can't. How do you deal with it? Do you whip that money? Because there's nobody gonna get it. Do you waive that money for them because they're new arrivals, or what you do? And then you fight.
We have a number of ways that we can work with customers, but we don't waive deposits.
And we refer a lot of our customers to, if they don't have a deposit, we refer them to, we have a list of agencies that assist with deposits. So we'll give you a list of agencies that can assist you with trying to pay a deposit. We realize $180 is a lot of money for somebody, you know, who doesn't have it. So we have all sorts of options that we can offer them, but we don't waive it.
I just want to make a comment. I appreciate you guys work with someone. But my library is bad, high. Can someone work with me? Okay, we work with you, go business. I like that, you know. That's my thing.
Anybody else have any? Yes.
So is there a place on the website or somewhere where you can see for the size of your house and the amount of electricity that you use, are you using average, above average, so, because it's hard to know. I mean, the way we live, are we being wasteful? How do you, and maybe average for your neighborhood in Nashville, where you are, just to see where you.
We do have tools on the website where you can go in and put in your square footage and that type of thing that will show you where you are, you know, what you're spending and what ways you might, things you might consider doing to save. But as far as comparing you to your neighbor's house or something like that, that's a hard comparison to make because your neighbor may have 12 people living there and you have 2, or your neighbor's house may be bigger or smaller or may not be insulated well and yours is. It's hard to do that. But for you, your place specifically, if you'll go online and look at those tools, I think it'll help.
Right, but then nothing pops up there that says, oh, well done, you're safe, you know, you're doing really poorly, or so, you know, there's no way to know if you're a good citizen who's spending
Yes.
Well, I don't know. I know there are some tools out there that do those, but we don't have those on our website.
As long as you're using power, you're a good citizen.
Yes.
This might be a silly question, but, you know, during Christmas time, when a lot of lights, and, you know, some people have just, like, you know, no lights, well, we have, like, you know, even outside decorations, and some have a lot. So, you know, I've heard this from different people, and I just want to know if it's true or not. Is it true that, for example, in my neighborhood, we have 10 houses, if 5 of those houses have lights up and they use a lot of energy, is it true that the bill is spread out among the different families?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. No, 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 no.
So does that
We
family?
read every meter, every month.
Yes.
Every individual meter.
Yes. Yes.
On the balance page, is that ever like reconciled with like what you're, and how does that?
It happens at the end of the year.
Yeah, at the end of your balance billing year. Let's say you sign up in March, or let's say you sign up in next May, or this May coming up. Then it would go for a year, and then your balance billing year would be, we'd actually settle up with you April, and then your balance billing year would start over. So it's whenever you enroll. We used to, the program we had before, it was a set time that we did it, but now it's, people, customers can enroll all during the year. Yes?
Do you still subsidize solar or no? Solar panels, like installation of solar, buyback or
We do have some programs, but I don't think any of the three of us are, go on our website and look and see. Those programs actually come through TBA, so we're not as familiar with those as we probably should be.
But you're right, Teresa, there is some valuable information on our website that you could read. And then if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to call. We can get you to the right person to talk to.
Actually, as far as the online payment is concerned, there is a processing fee if I elect to pay by phone or a third party. If I elected to pay online, you stop sending the bill.
Correct. If you sign up for e-bill, we will not send a paper bill.
And I need this paper to remind me to pay the bill.
Oh, wait, did you say the paper, you need the paper bill to remind you?
Yes.
Well, yes, we do send an email to you. It's your email. We send it in an email.
And there is an option, you can pay electronically and we still have the paper bill will come to them. If you want to pay online, you still have that option.
Now, if you sign up for a lot of companies I know do that, but if you sign up for our e-bill program, we don't send a paper bill any longer. You will get an email reminder, but you won't get a paper. Now, you can print it and keep it yourself if you want to, but we don't send a paper bill.
Yes.
I think one time I was trying to pay online, and I don't know, I asked to pay, they're gonna charge me extra money, and I said, if I'm paying you guys, why should I be charged? I don't know, what is it, $5 is first time fee? And so I paid it online. And I said, well, I'm gonna go back to the NES and pay the money, you know? So I don't know why they charge.
The fee is $225.
Right, we've, even the.
E-bill is free.
Yeah, e-bill is free, and if you're choosing the one-time payment, that is $225. Now our company, we've never had a $5 fee. I'm not sure, that might be, could be another utility, but Nashville Electric, the fee now is $225 for the one-time payment. Again, that's not something NES charges. Sure.
This cable owned by the private.
We're a public utility, and we're actually owned by the citizens of Nashville. And we have a 5-member power board that are appointed by the mayor. And they are who oversees all the operations of NES.
Well, thank you all so much for being here. All right, so that was probably the first time you hear about NES, but definitely informative. One of the things that we heard from you all in your surveys after was that you wanted the opportunity to talk to each other a little bit more. And one of the things that we want to make sure is happening is that not only are you guys talking to each other, but you're going back out into your into maybe 5 different groups. I'm going to pass these out, nominate somebody to serve as your secretary. We'll spend just a few minutes answering these questions, and then we'll ask the secretary, or we'll call the spokesperson, to get up and tell us 2 things. And these are 2 of the questions on this page. What your biggest takeaways have been so far from MyCity Academy, either today or last time or both, and how you either have shared or plan to share that information with your communities. So right